Hey folks, welcome to the Mike Lopez TV Show. I'm your host, ACMike. We'll bring you all things Atlantic City. Politics, sports, dining, entertainment, and so much more. Our guest today is Senator Vince Polistina, Legislative District 2. So stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome to the show. Our first guest today is Senator Vince Polistina, New Jersey's Legislator of District 2. Senator, welcome to the show.
Mike, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So glad that you're with us. Listen, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this interview, Senator, we'd like to get the viewers at home to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
So I grew up in Galloway Township, actually right by Seaview Country Club. Went to all the Galloway public schools and then went on to Rutgers University, got a degree in environmental engineering. Then came back to the area after I graduated from college and moved to Egg Harbor Township, where I now live with my wife, Carolyn, and 3 kids, Vincent, Dominic, and Cole. Vincent's 17, Dominic and Cole are 16. So we're right in the middle of the college search. Interesting being here at Stockton University because the older one is now looking at colleges, and in the fall, we'll be entering his freshman year of college somewhere.
Wow, that's awesome. Listen, I'm sure it's keeping you busy as well, too.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're doing the tours and going around, taking a look at everything, and hopefully helping him make the best decision he can for his future.
Love it. Listen, couldn't be in a better place right now at Stockton University. So we're going to get into this real quickly, Senator. I want to talk a little bit of Atlantic City. I know there's some Atlantic City fatigue in the state and all over the place, but it is an important part and piece of geographical, some land to the state. The future, we're going to start off right with that. What do you see with the future of Atlantic City in your point of view?
Yeah, so Mike, I appreciate that. Obviously, Atlantic City is so important, not only to our region, obviously we know how important it is for the jobs and economic activity for the region, but to the state. So much funding for the state comes from Atlantic City. So we have some challenges over there that we need to really deal with. And we've been on this kind of pattern for a while where we had the tourism district created and then the takeover. We still are left with a city which we need reinvestment and we need redevelopment and we need to make it clean and safe and well lit. And so we've heard this mantra for a long time about getting it clean, getting it safe. I think lighting is one of the huge things we need to do for that city now because it has to be more lit. So what you saw in 2022 is our efforts, Don Guardian, Claire Swift, and I, primarily as a senator, trying to get the right people in place, whether it's the Atlantic County prosecutor, Will Reynolds, getting our judiciary filled, getting some of the board appointments done, trying to get people in place that are here from Atlantic County that'll have a real focus on the city and trying to get the right things done for the city. And so, as we go forward, obviously, we need everyone to work together, to go in the same direction, because that's the only way the city will succeed.
And when you talk like that, you talk to me about team. Having folks, whatever side of the table you're on, let's get it for the betterment of the people, for the residents, the visitors, and whatnot. So you mentioned clean and safe. I know some of these meetings I go to, I don't know which one sometimes I'm going to. We got the Fridays, we got some Wednesdays, but clean, safe, and well lit. I think that is so important. It's not brain surgery, but for some reason or another, just like you mentioned, it's been so hard to do, whether it be mismanagement in the past, and not to finger point at anyone, but I think what I see daily, being out there, whether it be the boardwalk streets or just driving around, it's starting to happen. I mean, the collaboration you're having, and you mentioned the prosecutor and the city as well. Talk about that a little bit and some of those meetings that have been taking place, but now into action as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And I can't agree with you more. We could criticize for a long time. We could fill up the entire show with criticisms, but that does us no good. We're at a point now where we know what needs to be done in terms of collaboration for the city. gaming entities are there. We have to support those operators, but we really need to build a city at this point, and it's got to be one city, and so we need to work together. You know, we just don't have the funding and the revenue right now because of the competition that we saw, because some of the challenges of the city. We don't have the revenue to just bring in a bunch more police officers. We got to figure out how we can work together, and so we've talked about, for instance, we're here at Stockton. Stockton has a police force, which when the students are all here in the fall and spring semesters, they are terribly needed for the school. But in the summer, when there's not as much activity at the campus, maybe we can build a partnership between Atlantic City Police Department and the police department from Stockton University to collaborate, to work together to get more of a presence on the street. Those types of things, and also with security forces from the casinos. We need to figure out how can we partner with all of these agencies here to really collaborate, work together to get more of a presence on the street from law enforcement, public safety, you know, even public works. So that is going to be huge, of course. Get it cleaned up, you know, do some power washing, get some concrete replaced, get some landscaping done. Ultimately, you know, lighting is going to be a huge component of what we do. Prosecutors started that process with CRDA, and of course CRDA has been a great partner with some of the stuff to try to fund some of these things, but we got to really figure out how we can further those partnerships and really get things done for the betterment of the city.
And when you mentioned the Special Improvement Division, CRDA, or Public Works, that wouldn't normally be something most folks would think about, you know, for, you know, safety, public safety, health, you know. Good health is public safety, right? I hear you guys mention that all the time. I love that collaboration. One of the hats I wore after working at the Public Safety, Department of Public Safety, fancy for the jail, was with the Special Improvement Division as well, cleaning up the city. Wanted to see how that all worked. And those men and women work very hard. But again, with what you're doing, the collaboration with Public Works, the prosecutor, that is so important with cleanliness, you know, I mean, not just with safety, but also getting the visitor and the investor in. The lights, talked to Bart Blatstein about 6 months ago, and we were just talking on the boardwalk back and forth, and I was like, Bart, you just got to light it up. You got to light that up, and that's the whole key, whether it's the boardwalk or the city. You know, you speak about Stockton University. I would love for you to touch on that a little bit more, because one thing I always like to talk, and we're talking a little bit Atlantic City right now, is eds and meds. So whether it's Atlantic Care doing additions or Stockton University, I mean, what do you feel on that?
Absolutely has to be part of the future. I think the transformation of that southern portion of the city with the Stockton University campus is absolutely fabulous. Now you have students there, you have activity there from people out on the streets, you know, of course getting the economic activity from the students. Atlantic Care's investments in the city have been phenomenal. They just opened their new center there, and so that absolutely has to be part of the future. I would like to see Stockton get into some more like technology or engineering stuff, because I'm an engineer by background, right. So I would love to see that, whether it's, you know, esports or iGaming or some of these renewable energy technologies. I would love to see part of the future something like that with Stockton, so we'll see how it plays out with their future development. But there's no question that we need to continue the transformation we see in that southern end and continue to move north as you go to Tropicana, you go to Caesars, and start filling in some of these vacant lands and some of the blighted lands. That's part of the future, is to fill in kind of in between Atlantic Care and Stockton in the city, so we can get some more development there. And like you said, the end of the day, the more activity we have from people on the streets, whether it is law enforcement or public works or casino security, any activity where people come into the city and they see a presence from public workers or public safety professionals or anyone, it's going to give them more of a sense of security. And so we have to figure out how to get people out on the street and make sure when visitors are coming to town, they see that presence.
And I love what you say, that with presence, because I drop back to my former job. And the reason you wear a uniform, whether it's a police uniform or any type of uniform, is that presence, you know, so people feel that safety or whatever it may be, or the Public Works Department. So we got about a minute left here, and we'll be right back with the next segment with you, though. But real quickly, Atlantic Club, anything there, that safety net? Or
yeah, I think they're doing, I mean, they bought it, a guy bought it out in New York, so they're talking about it, and that I think will be something you see. I've heard condos maybe. I mean, one of the things we have to do with Atlantic City is kind of rebuild some of the residential population, so hopefully that is part of the discussion, because we got to get more residents into the city as well.
Exactly. So, hey, folks, stick around right where you're at. We'll be right back with more from Senator Vince Polistina. Welcome back to the show. Today's guest is Senator Vince Polistina, Legislator, District 2. Senator, we want to get into a little bit some county issues right now. Not so much issues, but just happenings, what's going on. The airport. Talk to us a little bit about that, please.
Atlantic City International Airport is just absolutely huge for the future, Mike. We talked a little bit about Atlantic City. We all know, some of the competition we saw in 2006 when gaming proliferated had a huge impact on Atlantic City. And now we know that New York gaming, depending on who you talk to, probably 3, 4, 5 years. So when New York gaming comes, the people driving down from New York are going to be less going to Atlantic City. We know that. And so how do we fill in, some of the gaps with the tourists? We have to do it through the Atlantic City International Airport. It's got to be developed to the point where we are bringing people in to visit Atlantic City through the airport. We did some bills to collaborate with CRDA, hopefully to get some transportation alternatives, from the airport over to the city. Because when we get to Vegas or something, it's just so much of a different experience, more fun. So we have to figure out transportation from the airport over to the city, but we also have to figure out how can we get more activity and more traffic into the airport. I think the way to do it, is the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. We've heard that talked about before, but they have they got the ability to come in and really bring some passenger air traffic from some of the traffic at Newark or some of the areas up there down to Atlantic City. And so I think that they have to be part of the conversation in partnership going forward, and we'll see how that plays out. But that's certainly something that we're going to look at, is trying to improve the activity at the airport.
They definitely have the wherewithal to be able to pull that off. Do you think as well, different airlines coming in? I mean, how would that work? I mean, we don't have the biggest airport in the area, but I think it's very convenient. I'm not going to lie to you, but you're right. We need more of that traffic. Would it be other airlines a possibility?
I hope, because the airport terminal itself isn't the biggest, but the runway can handle anything. And so I think when you think of some of the overflow at Newark, they could bring them down here. This is much easier to get to, much more convenient to fly through. And so I think you will have some people coming down to go through Atlantic City, even from some of the airlines at Newark. And so I think that is definitely, something we have to look at in the future. And I absolutely think we need additional airlines. One of the things I hear about all the time is funny, but, public complaining about some of the times now of Spirit flights, because you remember down to Florida, they used to have 3 flights a day, and now it's been cut back. And so the flight coming home from Fort Lauderdale, for instance, is 6:45 in the morning, and I get complaints from people saying, how come we can't get Spirit to have more convenient times and more flights? So that's definitely something that we have to do as we move into the future.
We'll definitely be looking forward to that, and if it does happen. But you touched on something a couple of minutes ago. I mean, to most folks, it would sound like an easy problem, trying to get people from the airport to Atlantic City, but it's not always as simple as it sounds.
It isn't, and the network around here doesn't really facilitate the ability to get from point A to point B very easily. So we have the old rail line, and some people have talked about some opportunities with the old rail line, but we're in a position now where the technology is changing so much. You have these unmanned aerial vehicles that are going to be part of the future, maybe 10 years or so, and the Aviation Research Park is doing some of the studying and some of the technology and some of the background on these. But you could literally take off from the airport, travel right over to Atlantic City and be able to land right over there, right in one of those vehicles, kind of a, personal taxi, and that you could take right over. And
just like the old days back in the 80s, they used to just run people up into Atlantic City. You touched on the Aviation Research Park. Talk a little bit more about that, if you don't mind, please.
Yeah, again, another big thing that we need to do for the future here. And I mentioned my kids are 17 and 16. And so one of the reasons I got back into politics was because I wanted to, see more opportunities for everyone here, whether you go to college and you want to come back, or whether you want to be trained here to do a trade, whatever the case may be. We need more opportunities for people here in South Jersey. And so the aviation industry, is a burgeoning industry. Some of the things they're doing with new technology to lessen the amount of fuel that planes need to use to land is being done out there. Some of this new technology with the unmanned vehicles are being done there. But we have now gotten funding for the next building at the Aviation Research Park. They have one building up. You have people like the Air Force and NASA and the FAA in that building. I mean, these are major national players that we have in that building, and we have the funding in place, a commitment of $8 million already, and I believe the state's going to be coming in with another $10 million to build the second building. And fingers crossed, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to get a groundbreaking for the next building at the Aviation Research Park. It'll be about a $16 or $18 million building, and I think they have it all rented already. So, it's one of these things, if we build it, we're going to have people there utilizing it. And that'll give opportunities for people that want to get in the aviation industry, be able to get educated or get training right here in South Jersey and just give more opportunities for people.
And to piggyback on what you just mentioned there, Senator, just today on the radio show, I was talking about, our students. We're here at Stockton University. We're talking about Rowan, Atlantic Cape Community College, Rutgers University. We want our young men and women from the area get those degrees. I mean, of course, some of them want to move away and take them, but we want them to stay in our area, whether it be Atlantic County, Cape May County, and put those degrees to work, find a wife, find a husband, whatnot, and stay here. But it takes jobs, right? Different type, not just hospitality. We love our casinos and what they do out there and some of the hotels, but it's so important for these young men and women to take those degrees and stay in town.
Without question. And you said it. You want people to have an opportunity to start their families here, have a career here, and really have roots here. I mean, a lot of us are here because our families were here.
Right.
And we want the same opportunity for our kids to be able to do the same thing and have an opportunity here to be here, to work here, to live here, and really enjoy here. South Jersey is fabulous. We all know.
It is.
The beach and the boardwalk and the amenities we have here in South Jersey are just unlike anywhere else. And so, if we can create the economic diversity and we can create the jobs and the opportunities, we're going to see more and more people coming to South Jersey.
And when you mention that too, I just see us both light up because it's the truth. I mean, we're Northeasterners, Jersey guys or whatever, complain a little bit, this, that, but you know what? Love it. We didn't go anywhere, did we? We stayed right here.
Absolutely.
Right. So can we touch on a little bit more with fixing the transportation around the Shore Mall? We're talking transportation.
Yeah, one of the other big projects we're working on, Mike, is the that situation with traffic around the Shore Mall where you have you can't make a left out of the mall, at the Shore Mall.
Right.
Shore Mall, you can't navigate to the shopping center where Bradley's used to be, where Foreman Mills is now. And so we're talking with the DOT and with Congressman Van Drew and the other entities about moving the light. So you'll have a full interchange between those two shopping areas. You'll be able to make a left in, you'll be able to make a left out and have movement between the two. And we also are going to hopefully have a direct access if you're going southbound on the Garden State Parkway right into those shopping centers. Because obviously we've seen over time, the retail sector has been impacted and some of those areas, are struggling a little bit. So we want to do direct access from the Parkway, fix the transportation around there so you can get to both of those shopping centers without having to go back on the Black Horse Pike and then be able to make lefts in and lefts out. And so that's another big project we're working on with the DOT, try to get that done.
So as an engineer, you see that and you're like, well, who the heck did this and put this together? No, we'll leave that one alone. So, you see, what do you see Atlantic County? I mean, the future looks bright. I hear county executive talking about it all the time, and he's done a great job. And you're now here, District 2, representing us in Trenton. What do you feel?
I feel good. I think diversifying the economy, investing in Atlantic City are going to be huge. I think that there are some key redevelopment opportunities we have here in South Jersey. The Shore Mall, kind of that area we just talked about, the Hamilton Mall with the track, obviously. That area is just ripe for redevelopment to figure out who could be the end operator. So you have Hamilton Mall, Shore Mall. You also have Bader Field, we talked about a little bit. You have Gardner's Basin. Hopefully, I would like to see some of the restrictions lifted on some of that area. So then if you can work regionally to kind of figure out all these major development projects you have potential here, try to make them complement one another so you're getting different things. I think that is really what we need to look for from a regional perspective. And Lauren Moore, Atlantic County Economic Alliance and some of the other entities are really looking at these issues. And I think if we can do that and again, work together,
right.
Future is very, very bright for South Jersey.
It's working together. Hey, folks, stick around. We'll be right back with more from Senator Vince Polistina. Hey, welcome back to the show. Again, we're with Senator Vince Polistina, New Jersey legislator, District 2. Real quick, the budget today, as we speak, dating ourselves a little bit. This won't be aired for a little bit, but talk to us anything statewide that's going to be coming on down.
Yeah, so there's a lot of good things in the budget. Obviously, we, if you recall, I, Don Guardy, and Claire Swift were the only Republicans that voted for the budget last year because of the research part, because some of the money we got here in Atlantic County. We're going to get, a boardwalk fund this year in the budget, and so they recognize, we have to make repairs to our boardwalk. One of the most important pedestrian facilities we have in the entire state. And so we're going to get a lot of money hopefully coming back to Atlantic County for that. Hopefully more investments in the research park. Of course, you know, one of the reasons we voted for it was the biggest property tax rebate in the history of the state. Property taxes have always been a concern in this state, and so we're thankful that the governor and the legislature has recognized we really got to start working on property taxes in the state. Talking about kids not being able to have opportunities to get started here, property taxes are crippling, and so we need to really continue the conversation through the state budget. How do we get property taxes under control, and how do we support our local municipalities, support our school districts, support our teachers with the right amount of funding to make sure that they're able to do the job that they were hired to do.
So important, basic, but so important to keep people into the state. You know, when you talked about the boardwalk too, the first of its kind, the longest of its kind, right? Yep. So we're going to go on to your supporting law enforcement. You know, as a former law enforcement officer, near and dear to my heart, the men and women, and not only the men and women, but the families as well. I know we signed up for the job, and you go do your job, but it's not an easy one. So.
It is not, and that's the same thing where you're talking about giving teachers tools and resources. Right. There is absolutely no question. We need to give our law enforcement professionals the tools, the resources, and the ability to do their job. And that is just a huge thing we need in society everywhere for us to move forward with law and order. I just get frustrated. We all probably get frustrated. You being a former law enforcement official, you know, you get a couple bad apples in every profession. And the profession I'm in as a senator, you find more bad apples in this one than anywhere. So we certainly know, you know, you have bad apples everywhere.
Bad for a lot of different reasons too.
Well, no doubt about it. Right. But you can't let that taint an entire profession. Exactly. And so we need to support everyone in law enforcement. I mean, they go out every day to protect us, you know, provide our security, and also to serve the public. And so we need to do, you know, together, we need to just support them, give them everything they need to do the job. I gave the keynote at Atlantic Cape Community College for our recruits that were graduating. And I said one of that. We are not going to let a few bad situations taint the entire thing. And we know, you know, being in law enforcement, every day is not going to be a great day. Yeah. You're going to have some tough days, and you're going to, you know, it's not always going to be a wonderful thing, but you have to try to revert back, whether you're in the position I'm in, whether you're in a law enforcement position like that, try to revert back to the day when you actually were starting, the pride, the excitement you felt. So when I was starting in the Senate, you know, try to remember how excited you were when you were starting in your law enforcement career, the pride you had because you're going to be able to serve the public. Try to focus on that, and we got to try to drown out some of the minor extreme voices on some of these social media platforms because they are not helpful to supporting our law enforcement professionals.
Sitting behind the desk doing what they're doing. And to talk about that, those days in the beginning of my career and other careers and whatnot, Colonel Callahan, you know, blue sky days, I hear that quite a bit too. You know, when that's how you want to meet people or whatnot. And I believe a lot of it as well with law enforcement is training. You know, more and more training we have, I think the better off is, and as we go into, you know, 2023, things are a little different though, but it is so important. I scratch my head sometimes because I know, like you just said, that there's many, 95%, if not more, are good men and women who just want to go do their 8, 12, or 16 hours because you get held over. You don't go home if your relief doesn't come in or there's a situation. So, you know, I appreciate that as a former law enforcement officer, and many of my friends still involved in it. Getting parents involved. You touched on that a little bit. Vince.
Yeah, I mean, again, supporting law enforcement, providing for our security, and then getting parents involved. We have just seen, you know, over time where parents have to work harder and harder to make ends meet. I mean, it used to be, you know, one parent would go to work, mom would stay home, or dad would stay home, and you'd have a parent there kind of all the time. Maybe they took a part-time job. Now, kind of every parent, because of the, you know, the situation in New Jersey, how unaffordable it is, both parents always have to work. You know, the kids are off at school, and you just do not get as much involvement from parents as we saw in the past. And I just think this is absolutely critical going forward too, is we have to figure out ways where parents can be more involved in their kids' lives, making decisions about their education, making decisions about their future. You know, in some cases, unfortunately, as we talk about, getting, you know, notified about some potential criminal justice issues. But I think by and large, you know, I did a bill that would allow for parents to take paid family leave to go on one of their kids' class trips or something, so parents aren't faced with having to work or being able to spend time with their kids. And I just think that is really important to the future as we try to make sure we're involving parents in their kids' lives, because ultimately they're the most important people in their lives and their future.
100% our future and leaders, of course. And to your point, whether it's public servants, who I like to call politicians, or law enforcement or teachers or whatever it may be, even their workforce or whatever, it's not their responsibility, you know, to raise them, and you can't expect them to raise, you know. So, I mean, that's one. I have two sisters that are teachers, and they're wonderful women, but it's just like, you know, well, I'm not your parent, you know what I mean? So I get it. Juvenile justice legislation. Talk to us, please.
That was one of the ones we've been talking about. Obviously, you know, that when we did the new marijuana laws, one of the issues was law enforcement stopping a minor couldn't do anything, like couldn't interact with the minor. It's just not going to work as we go forward. You know, we all got in trouble when we were kids.
Oh, yeah.
You got brought down, you went through the holding cell, maybe your parents were notified, came down to get you, and then you didn't do it again. There's consequence to certain actions. And so we did the bill that would allow law enforcement to question kids with either marijuana or alcohol. You know, if they're under 18, take them down to the station, notify their parents, as should happen. They're minor children. If they're 18 to 21, just confiscate whatever the material is. If they're over 21, obviously now it's legal in New Jersey, and so they're on their way. But, you know, you need to give law enforcement the ability to do the job. One of the issues is obviously being able to question minors and making sure that minors understand when they do things like that, that there has to be some consequence. You just can't go on your way, because we've seen too many times in this society now where somebody gets stopped for doing something, even when they get down to the station, they're right back in the same spot doing the same thing over and over again. Can't have that. It's not going to work going forward, and it really is a problem in our tourist area when you're talking about Atlantic City or Ocean City, some of the beach areas.
Yeah, we have to take care of that. We got about a minute and a half left, Senator. Class 3 officers for rural areas. I know this is near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, it is. School security, obviously, with my kids in school is absolutely so important. You know, make sure that everybody has the ability to protect these educational facilities. And so you see Class 3 officers in places with local police departments, but you don't have it in some of the rural areas. And you're talking Buena Vista, some of the rural areas without local police departments. This would give the sheriff's office the ability to hire Class 3s and put them in the schools. And so again, trying to be proactive, making sure we're getting professional law enforcement people in these schools to protect them, protect our children, protect our teachers.
It's so important. So, Senator Vince Polistina, listen, we thank you so much for coming out here. That's it for this show, but we're going to definitely have you back. We're going to talk more about Atlantic County, Atlantic City, what's going on as we go into summer 2023. I want to thank you. I also want to talk about Motley Crue and Def Leppard and all these other places that I see you as well. But this man, folks, we're lucky to have him, Claire and Don Guardian, working for us in Trenton. I appreciate you coming out. Thank you so much.
Anytime, Mike. Thanks for having me. Great to be here. And we'll certainly come back anytime you want us to come out.
You got it. So, folks, hey, stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, folks, it's our belief here at the Mike Lopez TV Show that you, the viewers, and our guests bring the show to life. Thanks to each and every one of you for joining us tonight. To learn more about ACMike, go to acmikeNJ.com. On Facebook, ACMike, Mike Lopez, and LiveWorkPlayAC. And on Instagram, you can find me at ACMikeNJ. If you enjoyed watching today's show, you can also listen to my radio show on WOND 1400 AM, 92.3 FM, and on the World Wide Web at WONDradio.com. Monday through Friday, that's noon to 2 p.m. Sundays also at 11 a.m. till noon. Remember to always live, work, play AC, and I'll see you on the 48.